Hello and welcome to your Hometown Solutions. I'm your host, Jean Newell with Waterview Realty. And in the studios with me today is my co-host, Jonathan Lack. Hello, Jonathan.
Hello, Jean.
We have another exciting guest on the show. In the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about how people can get involved with their community, how they can get involved with helping charities. Last week, we talked about helping ourselves as far as financial investments and securities and Social Security and retirement. And today, it's all about perhaps ideas on how to maybe invest in different businesses as far as real estate. And of course, we have to give our slogan, Jonathan. We always say we cover everything real estate from foreclosures to Feng Shui. And today we have a wonderful guest that can talk about the difference of real estate and so forth, because he's a great investor and he understands the market. Because, Jonathan, we get a lot of calls about people that might want to buy properties as investments, but they don't know what they're doing. And we want to make sure that people don't go into real estate until they know exactly what their requirements are and so forth. So on that note, you have a lot of experience with our next guest. Go ahead and let's have you introduce them.
All right. Well, I first want to say thank you for having me back on the show, as always. And Lack & Lack Chartered is a transactional real estate law firm that handles real estate transactions throughout the state of Florida, but primarily focused on the Space Coast and Brevard County. And it's great to get back into real estate. We've had a few shows here where we've kind of gone a little abreast of real estate, which is great because we want to bring information to the community. But today we're going to focus on real estate and real estate investment properties. And I am pleased to have in the studio with us today Tony Pendle, with manager of Florida Property Management and Investment.
Hi,
Tony,
John.
Welcome to the show.
And Tony, tell us a little bit about your background. Are you native to this area? Did you come in from another area?
I have. I grew up in South Florida, but spent most of my life in Brevard County.
Every guest we've had on the last couple of weeks have been from South Florida.
Yes.
Where did you grow up in South Florida?
Boca Raton.
Oh, did you? Okay,
Yes.
good.
Yes.
I used to
Palm
work
Beach County for those listening.
Yes, I used to work for the Chamber of Commerce in Boca Raton years ago. There you go. Little tidbit of information. And of course, Jonathan's from the Miami.
No, I'm from Broward County.
County.
The last guest we had was Miami, so we just keep covering the Tri-County area of South Florida, but we've all discovered the paradise that is Brevard County.
Exactly.
It is a paradise.
And how long have you been here?
I've been in Brevard County since about 97, and I've been investing in property since about 99.
Okay.
And Brevard County is really the key area to invest in, I believe.
Right. So tell us a little bit about what your business is. How did you get started, and what is your mission, or what is your goals?
Well, we're a little different than the typical investor. A typical investor buys a property, rehabs the property, and then sells the property. Where we buy the property, rehab the property, and rent the property. So we're all about the cash flow income versus flipping a property, if you want to call it flippers.
And again, philosophically, that's a very different approach, because when you're looking to flip the property, you're trying to buy it in some form of distress situation. Presumably, you have the ability to make the repairs more affordably so that you put $20,000 into it, but you increase the value by $50,000. Whereas when you're doing it the way you approach it, you're looking at the rental value and more of a long-term recovery of your investment. Is that correct?
Correct. What we normally do is we try to find a property, whether it's in distress or not in distress. We'll buy properties either way. Typical renters are looking for property, of course, in moving conditions. So we always try and get that property ready for rental. But when we're looking for the property, we'll find properties in distress or non-distress properties and get those properties ready for rent.
And do you find, from an investment perspective, I remember, I'm just flashing back 25 years ago now to South Florida, and a client I had who has made his life of buying and renting properties, and he always told me he limited it to pretty much 3-2 single-family homes because he felt that was the most rentable. This again goes back to the 80s and 90s now. Is there what's the word I'm looking for? A standard criteria you look for?
There isn't. We buy 2-bedroom, 1 baths. We'll buy 4-bedroom, 3 baths. It really doesn't matter. The area is what matters. The area is going to dictate what the tenant is going to pay as far as rent. So whether it's a 5-bedroom, 3-bath or a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, the area is really the one that's going to dictate what the rental amount is going to be.
I know everything can be rented in Brevard County. There's $1 million mansions that are renting, and there's 2-bedroom, 2-bath condos that are being rented.
Correct.
So there's all kinds. So you have a website for people that are interested in rental property as well, though they can go there to find something for rent.
Absolutely.
And what is that website?
Rental property, but we also manage other people's property.
Oh,
and
good.
that website is www.floridapropertymanagementandinvestments LLC. I'm sorry, .com. I apologize.
That's right. Give it out one more time.
www.floridapropertymanagementandinvestments.com.
Could you have gotten a little bit longer website? Tell me. So that'll show people what's for rent, as well as they can get in touch with you or the company through that website if they've got a property that they want to rent, and let you manage it for them.
Absolutely. And we are a full-service management company. We handle everything from doing credit reports to background checks, also taking applications, doing quarterly inspections, to evictions, all the way from start to finish. We make it a one-stop shop for our landlords.
I'm always curious, how many investment properties do you have in your portfolio right now?
Currently, we're just over 200.
So
Is that throughout
full-time.
Brevard County, or do you cover any other areas?
Mostly Brevard County. We do cover Seminole and Orange County as well.
Oh, very good.
Well, one of the things that I know our audience is always interested in knowing is how do I get involved with real estate? And there's a lot of reasons why you don't want to go into the investment part unless you're prepared to know everything there is about it. So just as a little bit of information on those people that might think, oh, I'll just go out there and get a couple rental properties. Tell us a little bit maybe about how you started, what was you found out along the way, and what you would advise someone if they're thinking of doing something like that.
Well, it's definitely a learning process. I would definitely suggest hiring a licensed real estate agent, learning your community, learning your prices, not being so concerned on what you pay for the property, but being concerned on what your rental income is. Two completely different things. If you're looking to buy a property and sell a property, you're always concerned on what you're paying for it. Where if you're doing a rental, it really doesn't matter what you pay for the property as long as your rental income is, adequate for what you're paying for the property.
So it'll cover the monthly net that you need for
Absolutely.
that
You have
income.
to keep in mind if you're paying cash, you're just looking at your return. If you're financing a property, you have to look at your principal, your interest, your taxes, your insurance, deduct all of that out and see if you're making a profit. We always like to see with our investors at least a 50% profit. So, just to use dummy numbers, if you were paying collecting rent at $2,000 a month, your mortgage payment should not be over, with principal and interest, over $1,000 a month, including taxes and insurance.
Would you also include into that maybe your HOA fees, though, and lawn mowing and different things like that in your equation?
We recommend that you don't buy a property in an HOA only because of the fact that adds additional cost to it. So if you're going to do a rental property, we prefer that you stay away from HOAs. It would be a lot.
And would that include condominiums as well, then, for the same reason?
Absolutely. They have special assessments sometimes that people don't realize when they rehab the outside of the building. If that money is not in escrow, they special assess the owners of the property.
Oh, yes.
We've had that experience with some clients, absolutely.
And, of course, if you're taking a mortgage out on a property and they give you a special assessment of even a cheap special assessment of $10,000 or $15,000, that's definitely going to eat into your rental income.
On your 50-50 equation there, you said about insurance, but you also want to realize that when you own a home, your insurance is going to be less than when you're using it as a property, and your insurance is going to go up.
Are you talking about a rental property? Absolutely, your insurance does go up if it's a rental property, and you have a lot more risk.
If someone was thinking about, I know I've had rental property in the past, and it doesn't work out for me because I don't have I call it retail investing. If you have to have a property that every time something goes wrong, you have to hire someone to do the little things, it doesn't sometimes equate out right. I'd always have to hire an electrician to come in to do some minor thing because I couldn't do it myself. And that's where I always advise people, how are you going to get those little things done without hiring the pros? Where if you have lots of properties, you have your own staff that comes out and do a lot of the things.
We do have our own staff, but we also do use licensed contractors, and we recommend to all of our landlords to use licensed contractors. Of course, when you're dealing with 200 plus properties, you're going to get a much better price than you would. Exactly. And that's why we recommend people to use a management company. If you're going to buy 1 or 2 or 3 or even 5 or 10 rental properties, it's not very many. So you really do want to hire a management company that manage those properties for you. They're going to get you better prices, probably 50% lower than what you would be paying with still using a licensed contractor to do the work correctly.
Exactly.
When factoring in the management company, without putting you on the spot as far as fees and cost, is there some, again, I don't want to say rule of thumb or generic number, but what is the approximate cost of using a management company? I know it can vary case to case, but
it does, but it's pretty standard. It's 10% of whatever the rental income is. But again, if you get a full service management company that charges the 10% versus a real estate company that'll charge 5 or 6 or 7%, they're not a full service full service management company. They're a real estate company.
And by full service, you mean, for example, that call comes in at the middle of the night that our plumbing has burst and we need to get somebody out there. Do they call the management company or do they call the landlord?
No, they call the management company. It's full service. When we say full service, that means the landlord has no contact with the tenant and the tenant has no contact with the landlord. Our company handles everything 100% from start to finish. Whether it's our company or somebody else's company, we still recommend that they use a licensed company to manage their properties just to handle it, to give that division so they're not getting woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning, which does happen a lot.
So for the audience listening out there, what we're talking about is when you're entering into a real estate investment as a landlord, that your goal is to buy investment properties and make income from them, consider the cost of investment. This 10% is to turn over what turns out to be the worst part of landlording, dealing with the tenants and dealing with the crises, and it's really a nominal fee to pay to have your investment. You don't pay when you invest in stocks and bonds. You pay a brokerage fee to buy you stocks and bonds, but you don't sit there and worry about the companies. And same here, you don't want to be worrying about your properties. Having a management company such as Florida Property Management enables you to realize the investment and the income from the investment without as many of the headaches. Again, not to say there are none.
Absolutely. It should be no headaches, worry-free for the landlords. Landlords that do try to manage their own properties, we have them all the time call us up with 1,000 questions because, of course, it's a lot more than you could ever imagine taking on.
Exactly. You have to realize that if you only have 1 or 2 properties, you really don't have a business. It's kind of a hobby in a way because you're doing everything, trying to do everything yourself. If you really want to get into this, you need to get into it full blown and have someone helping you manage it, just like our past guests have told about managing their wealth and anything else. You need to have that professional advice.
That said, if you did just have the one-off, let's say you have a property and you're ready to move on to upgrade, and instead of selling your property, you choose to rent it, would it be appropriate to give Florida Property Management a call and say, hey, look, we have this one property. Really, the market's not great. We'd rather hold on to it than sell it. But we think we can, carry it. We have enough money, either own it free and clear, or the tax and insurance, or not so much if we can get it rented. Would that be a good client for you? And would you be a good resource to that client?
It just really all depends on the client itself. We have some clients that are very handy, prefer to be hands-on, and if they have 1 or 2 or 3 rentals, they prefer to do the repairs themselves and do stuff themselves. But just keep in mind, if they go in there and let's say they change an electrical outlet and, of course, the house burns to the ground, they can have a lawsuit on their hands. Right. But either way, I mean, it just all depends on the customer. We have customers that we service that have 1 rental, and we have customers that we service that have 25 rentals.
Okay.
One thing I saw one time about property management, if you're doing it yourself, and I probably get this a little mixed up, so help me out, Tony, that if you're doing a lot of the work yourself, you can't deduct that work if it's not done by a professional licensed person. So if you're up there putting on the roof yourself, you don't always get that as a write-off because it wasn't done by a professional. Am I on the right track there?
You are, but you can't use the roof as an example because you can't put a roof on a rental property yourself. You're not allowed to pull permits or do it yourself.
That's what I mean.
It's owner-occupied property only. But